the alien noble abandoned his broken child until a human stepped in. HFY Sci-Fi. The research world of Karos 9 was quiet in a way that felt heavy. The sky was always gray, not because of storms, but because the planet's atmosphere filtered light to protect delicate instruments. Tall white structures covered the surface, each one filled with laboratories, observation rooms, and sealed living units. It was a place built for study, not for life. Inside one of those structures lived a child the Empire had decided was broken. The child was small for their species, with soft, dull-colored skin instead of the bright noble patterns others carried. Their eyes were wide and thoughtful, always watching, always learning. When the child was very young, caretakers tried to connect them to the hive learning network used by their people. It failed again and again. The child could not think in perfect harmony with others. Their thoughts moved in strange paths, slow in some ways, fast in others. To the Empire, this was unacceptable. High Noble Kael'rith remembered the moment clearly. The room had been full of medical advisors and family elders. Screens showed endless data streams, red warning symbols flashing again and again. "This offspring will never fully integrate," one advisor said. "They will weaken your house." In the end, Kael'rith chose the Empire over his child. Official records marked the child as deceased due to genetic failure. In truth, the child was transported in silence to Karos 9, classified as a long-term observation subject. No family visits, no public acknowledgement, just data collection. Years passed. The child grew under careful watch. Machines fed them knowledge but never stories. Caretakers ensured survival but never warmth. They spoke in measured tones, never using the child's name, only a designation code. Tests were endless. The child learned quickly but not in the ways expected. They asked questions that had no place in test results. Why do stars die? Feelings were irrelevant. The child learned to be quiet. One cycle, everything changed. A human science vessel arrived in orbit, part of a cooperative agreement between the Empire and the growing human alliance. Humans were still considered minor players, short-lived, physically fragile, emotionally unpredictable. But they had one quality the Empire valued: adaptability. Doctor Elias Monroe stood near the observation window as the shuttle docked. He was tall by human standards, with tired eyes and hair already turning gray. He had spent his life working with individuals labeled difficult or unfit by their own societies. When the Empire requested a human behavioral specialist, Elias accepted without hesitation. Karos 9 unsettled him the moment he arrived. "It feels empty," he said quietly to the alien coordinator walking beside him. "This facility is operating within optimal parameters," the coordinator replied. "Emotional impressions are irrelevant." Inside sat a child, alone, drawing shapes in the dust on the floor with one finger. Elias stopped walking. "Who is that?" he asked. The coordinator hesitated. "An unsuccessful noble offspring, designated for long-term cognitive study." "Hope small but real. How old?" Elias asked. "Equivalent to 9 human years," the coordinator said. "Neural divergence prevents standard integration. Direct interaction is unnecessary." "That's okay," Elias continued. "You don't have to speak if you don't want to." He did not bring machines or tests at first. He brought stories. He talked about Earth, about humans who thought differently, learned differently, and changed the world because of it. The child listened closely. Instead of forcing hive-thinking exercises, Elias asked the child how they solved problems. He gave them puzzles with no single correct answer. The child struggled at first, then surprised everyone. Their solutions were creative, unusual, and often better than expected. Data reports changed. Subject displays independent strategic reasoning. The designation code caught his attention. He knew it well. His jaw tightened. Impossible, he told himself. The child was weak, yet the data did not lie. Back on Karos 9, the child waited eagerly for Elias each day. For the first time, someone listened. Someone cared whether they were afraid or happy. Elias taught the child a new word, one not found in imperial records. Potential. Time, which had once moved slowly and without meaning, now had shape. Elias arrived each cycle at the same hour, and the child waited for that sound of footsteps outside the chamber. Waiting no longer felt empty. It felt hopeful. Elias changed the room little by little. He asked permission before moving anything. He brought soft, light panels that could shift colors. He brought simple tools, not scanners or probes, but blocks, images, and logic games humans used with young learners. The scientists watched from behind glass, confused but curious. The child learned quickly, but not in straight lines. Some days they solved problems meant for older subjects. Other days they struggled with simple tasks. Elias did not punish or correct with sharp words. He only adjusted, learning how the child's mind moved. "You think sideways," Elias once said with a small smile. The child tilted their head. "Is that wrong?" Ethical reasoning, adaptive prediction. The scientists had no boxes for these things. They added notes instead. "This subject does not fit current models." The child was to be transferred to a noble academy for further evaluation. It was written in clean, emotionless language. The child did not understand at first. "Am I in trouble?" they asked. Elias crouched beside them. "No, but it will be hard." He knew the answer he was expected to give. "Yes," he said instead. The journey to the academy took weeks through controlled space lanes. The child had never seen open stars before, only filtered images on screens. Now they watched them move past the viewport, endless and bright. "What are they?" the child asked. "Choices," Elias said. "Each one leads somewhere." Classes were structured, strict, and unforgiving. Lessons relied on shared neural rhythms, fast group responses, and flawless memory recall. The child struggled. Instructors marked deficiencies without hesitation. Elias watched from the side, his hands tight at his sides. But when lessons shifted to problem scenarios, everything changed. In one session, students were given a simulated crisis involving trade, environment, and cultural misunderstanding between three species. Most students tried to force solutions through dominance or tradition. The simulation failed repeatedly. The child raised their hand slowly. The instructor hesitated, then allowed them to speak. "What if none of them are wrong?" the child said. "What if they are afraid?" Word spread. Soon, some students began asking the child questions in private, not kindly at first, but honestly. Why did humans teach this way? Why did emotions matter? Why did Elias stay? "Because humans protect their young," the child answered, repeating Elias' words, "even when they are different." This time there was no denying it. The Empire requested his presence. He stood in the great hall, older than before, his status intact but shaken. When the child entered, escorted by Elias, Kael'rith felt something tighten in his chest. The child looked stronger, taller. Their eyes were steady. This was not a failure. The child did not bow. Kael'rith wanted to speak, but no words came. Elias placed a gentle hand on the child's shoulder, not as a guard, but as family. The Empire began to realize something dangerous. Humans did not measure worth the same way, and that difference was changing everything. The attention did not fade after the Academy evaluation. Instead, it grew heavier. The child felt it in the way instructors watched more closely, in the careful tone used by officials, and in the quiet distance some noble students now kept. Being noticed was almost as frightening as being ignored. Elias stayed close. He could not change the rules of the academy, but he could stand beside the child within them. Each evening they talked in a small room overlooking the city lights. "Did I do something wrong?" the child asked one night. "No," Elias said. "You did something honest." They were public demonstrations meant to decide future roles within the empire. Status, influence, and access depended on performance. Noble families watched carefully. The child was listed last. Before the demonstrations began, Kael'rith requested a private audience. The meeting room was wide and cold, designed to impress and intimidate. Kael'rith stood tall, his posture perfect. Elias stood calmly beside the child. "You have exceeded expectations," Kael'rith said, looking only at the child. "Your presence here reflects well on my house." There was no answer. Afterward, the child felt tired in a way no test had caused. Elias did not try to explain or defend. He simply said, "You are allowed to feel what you feel." Then it was the child's turn. The task was complex. A theoretical expansion plan involving multiple species, limited resources, and unpredictable environmental shifts. The expected approach relied on strict hierarchy and control. The child listened carefully, reading the room as much as the data. They began slowly. Instead of issuing commands, the child described listening points. Instead of enforcing outcomes, they described shared goals. They spoke about trust, about adapting when plans failed, about letting those closest to a problem help solve it. Some observers frowned, others leaned forward. As the model adjusted, conflicts reduced, resources balanced, unexpected cooperation emerged. The system did not just survive, it improved. Silence followed. Then quiet discussion. Then applause, hesitant at first, then steady. The child stepped back, heart racing. They looked at Elias. He smiled, pride clear in his eyes. After the demonstrations, debates spread through the academy and beyond. Scholars argued over definitions. Officials questioned old metrics. The idea that empathy could be strategic unsettled centuries of belief. Some nobles resisted openly. "This thinking weakens authority," one said. "It changes authority," another replied. The child became a symbol without choosing to be one. Other students, especially those who had struggled silently, began approaching the child, not for answers but for understanding. They talked about pressure, fear, and the cost of perfection. The child listened. Elias had taught them how. One evening, the child asked Elias, "Why do humans keep trying when it hurts?" Humans were allowed to observe. The hall was filled. Light reflected off polished surfaces. The child walked forward alone. They spoke clearly. "I was told I was broken," the child said. "I believed it because everyone else did. Then a human spoke to me like I mattered. He did not fix me. He learned me. I think it is incomplete. Strength is not sameness. Order is not silence. If you leave behind those who think differently, you lose what they can see." The council recorded the moment. The child felt something settle inside, not forgiveness, not yet, but clarity. After the session, Elias and the child stood together beneath the open sky. Stars stretched endlessly above them. "What happens now?" the child asked. "Now," Elias said, "you choose." The child looked at the stars again, remembering the first time they had seen them. They were no longer afraid. And the empire, whether ready or not, was learning. The final decision did not come immediately. Empires moved slowly, especially when old beliefs were being questioned. Days turned into weeks as councils debated, scholars reviewed data, and noble houses argued behind closed doors. The child waited, but this time the waiting did not feel empty. They were no longer alone inside themselves. Elias remained by the child's side, though messages from Earth grew more frequent. Human leadership was watching closely. What began as a simple exchange mission had become something far larger. Still, Elias never spoke of leaving. One morning, an official summons arrived. The child and Elias were escorted to the Central Council chamber, a place reserved for decisions that shaped generations. Representatives from many species filled the seats. Some watched with interest, others with concern. At the center stood High Noble Kael'rith. The child felt calm. The council leader spoke first. "The empire must decide how it defines value. This individual has forced that question." "I followed tradition," he said. "Tradition does not excuse blindness. I cannot undo my choice. I can only acknowledge it." "I will not return to a noble house," the child continued. "I will work with humans, with others like me. I will help build systems where no one is discarded before they are understood." Observation worlds like Karos 9 would be reviewed. Education models expanded. Neural difference reclassified as variation, not defect. Other species took notice. Humans, once seen as fragile, were now studied for their social resilience. Their refusal to abandon their own became a strength others sought to understand. As preparations began, the child stood at the spaceport with Elias. Ships moved quietly in the distance. "Are you afraid?" Elias asked. "Yes," the child said honestly, "but not alone." Their presence steady, others listened. Kael'rith watched from afar, no longer at the center but no longer hiding. The empire did not fall, it grew, and humanity's quiet lesson echoed across the stars. No one is broken beyond understanding. All it takes is someone willing to stay.